Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 691st night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Jamil advised the elopement and night journey, promising his aid as long as he lived, the youth accepted and said, 'O cousin, wait till I take counsel with her, for she is quick-witted and prudent and hath insight into affairs.' So," continued Jamil, "when the night darkened and the hour of her coming arrived, and he awaiting her at the appointed tide, she delayed beyond her usual time, and I saw him go forth the door of the tent, and opening his mouth, inhale the wafts of breeze that blew from her quarter, as if to snuff her perfume, and he repeated these two couplets: Breeze of east, who bringest me gentle air from the place of sojourn where dwells my fair. O breeze of the lover thou bearest sign, canst not of her comings some signal bear? Then he entered the tent and sat weeping a while, after which he said to me, O my cousin, some mischance must have betided the daughter of mine uncle, or some accident must have hindered her from coming to me this night, presently adding, But abide where thou art, till I bring thee news. And he took sword and shield, and was absent a while of the night, after which he returned, carrying something in hand, and calling aloud to me. So I hastened him, and he said, O my cousin, knowest thou what hath happened? I replied, No, by Allah. Quoth he, Verily, I am distraught concerning my cousin this night, for as she was coming to me, a lion met her in the way, and devoured her, and there remaineth of her but what thou seest. So saying, he threw down what he had in his hand, and behold, it was the damsel's turban, and what was left of her bones. Then he wept sore, and casting down his bow, took a bag, and went forth again, saying, Stir not, hence till I return to thee, if but please Almighty Allah. He was absent a while, and presently returned, bearing in his hand a lion's head, which he threw on the ground, and called for water. So I brought him water, with which he washed the lion's mouth, and fell to kissing it, and weeping. And he mourned for exceedingly, and recited these couplets. Ho, thou lion, who broughtest thyself to woe, thou art slain, and worse sorrows my bosom rend. Thou hast reft me of fairest companionship, made her home earth's womb, till the world shall end. To time, who hath wrought me such grief, I say, Allah grant in her stead never show a friend. Then said he to me, O cousin, I conjure thee by Allah and the claims of kindred and constancy between us, keep thou my charge. Thou wilt presently see me dead before thee, wherefore upon me do thou wash me and shroud me and these that remain of my cousin's bones in this robe, and bury us both in one grave, and write thereon these two couplets. On earth's surface we lived in rare ease and joy, by fellowship joined in one house and home. But fate with her changes departed us, and the shroud conjoins us in earth's cold womb. Then he wept with sore weeping, and entered the tent, was absent a while, after which he came forth, groaning and crying out. Then he gave one sob, and departed from the world. When I saw that he was indeed dead, it was grievous to me, and so sore was my sorrow for him, that I well nigh followed him for excess in mourning over him. Then I laid him out, and did as he had enjoined me, shrouding his cousin's remains with him in one robe, and laying the twain in one grave. I abode by their tomb 3 days, after which I departed, and continued to pay frequent pious visits to the place for 2 years. This, then, is their story, O Commander of the Faithful. Al-Rashid was pleased with Jamel's story, and rewarded him with a robe of honor and a handsome present. And men also tell a tale concerning the Badawi and his wife. Caliph Muawiyah was sitting one day in his palace at Damascus, in a room whose windows were open on all 4 sides, that the breeze might enter from every quarter. Now it was a day of excessive heat, and no breeze from the hills stirring, and the middle of the day, when the heat was at its height, and the Caliph saw a man coming along, scorched by the heat of the ground, and limping as he fared on barefoot. Muawiyah considered him a while, and said to his courtiers, Hath Allah, may he be extolled and exalted, created one miserabler than he, who must needs hie abroad at such an hour, and such sultry tide as this? Quoth one of thee, Happily he seeketh the commander of the faithful. And quoth the Caliph, By Allah, if he seek me, I will assuredly give to him, and if he be wronged, I will certainly succor him. Ho, boy, stand at the door, and if yonder wild Arab seek to come in, forbid him not to come in, therefore. So the page went out, and presently the Arab came to him, and he said, What dost thou want? Answered the other, I want the commander of the faithful. And the page said, Enter. So he entered and saluted the Caliph. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 692nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the page allowed him to enter, the Badawi saluted the Caliph and said to him, Who art thou? Replied the Arab, I am a man of the Banu Tamnin. And what bringeth thee to us at this season? Said Muawiyah. And the Arab answered, I come to thee complaining, and thy protection imploring. Against whom? Against Marwan bin Hakam, thy deputy, replied he, and began reciting. Muawiyah, thou generous lord, and best of men that be, and O thou Lord of learning, grace, and fair humanity. Thee words, I come because my way of life is straight to me. O help, and let me not to spare thine equity to see. Deign thy redress the wrong that dealt the tyrant whim of him, who better had my life destroyed than made such wrong to dree. He robbed me of my wife, Sued, and proved him worst of foes, stealing mine honour mid my folk with foul iniquity, and when about to take my life, therefore this appointed day hath dawned which Allah made my lot to destiny decree. Now when Muawiyah heard him recite these verses, with the fire flashing from his mouth, he said to him, Welcome, and fair welcome, O brother of the Arabs. Tell me thy tale, and acquaint me with thy case. Replied the Arab, O commander of the faithful, I had a wife, whom I loved passing dear, with love none came near, and she was the coolth of mine eyes, and the joy of my heart. And I had a herd of camels, whose produce enabled me to maintain my condition. But there came upon us a bad year, which killed off hoof and horn, and left me naught. When what was in my hand failed me, and wealth fell from me, and I lapsed into evil case, I at once became abject, and a burden to those who erewhile wished to visit me. And when my father knew it, he took her from me, and abjured me, and drove me forth without ruth. So I repaired to thy deputy, Marwan bin al-Hakam, and asked his aid. He summoned her sire and questioned him of my case, which he denied any knowledge of. Quoth I, Allah assain the emir. And it pleased him to send for the woman and question her of her father, saying, The truth will appear. So he sent for her, and brought her. But no sooner had he set eyes on her, than he fell in love with her. So became my rival. And he denied me succor, and was wroth with me, and sent me to prison, where I became as I had fallen from heaven, and the wind had cast me down in a far land. Then said Marwan to her father, Wilt thou give her to me to wife, on a present settlement of 1,000 dinars, and a contingent dowry of 10,000 dirhams, and I will engage to free her from yonder wild Arab. Her father was seduced by the bribe, and agreed to the bargain, whereupon Marwan sent for me, and looking at me like an angry lion, said to me, O Arab, divorce Suad. I replied, I will not put her away. But he sent on me a company of his servants, who tortured me with all manner of tortures, till I found no help for it but to divorce her. I did so, and he sent me back to prison, where I abode till the days of her purification were accomplished, when he married her and let me go. So now I come hither in thee hoping, and thy succor imploring, and myself on thy protection throwing. And he spoke these couplets. Within my heart is fire, which ever flameth higher. Within my frame are pains for skill of leech too dire. Live coals in vitals burn, and sparks from coal upspire. Tears flood mine eyes and down, coursing my cheek ne'er tire. Only God's aid and thine I crave for my desire. Then he was convulsed, and his teeth chattered, and he fell down in a fit, squirming like a Scotch snake, when Muawai heard his story in his verse, and he said, Marwan bin al-Hakam hath transgressed against the laws of the faith, and hath violated the harem of true believers. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 693rd night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the Caliph Muawai heard the wild Arab's words, he said, The son of al-Hakam hath indeed transgressed against the laws of the faith, and hath violated the harem of true believers. Presently adding, O Arab, thou comest to me with a story the like whereof I have never heard. Then he called for the ink case and paper, and wrote to Marwan as follows, Verily, it hath reached me that thou transgressest the laws of the faith with regards to thy lieges. Now it behoveth the wali who governeth the folk to keep his eye from their lusts, and stay his flesh from its delights. And after he wrote many words, which, quoth he, told me the tale, I omit for brevity's sake, and amongst them were these couplets. Thou wast invested, woe to thee, with rule for thee unfit. Crave thou of Allah pardon for thy foul adultery. The unhappy youth to us is come complaining mid his groans, and ask redress for parting grief, and sadden me through thee. An oath have I to Allah, sworn shall never be forsworn. Nay, for I do what faith and creed command me to decree. And thou dare cross me in whate'er to thee I now indict, I of thy flesh surely will make the vulture free. Divorce Suad, equip her well, and in the hottest haste, with al-Kumat and Zubao's son, hight Nasir, sent to me. Then he folded the letter, and sealing it with his seal, delivered it to al-Kumat, and Nasir bin Zaban, whom he was wont to employ on weighty matters because of their trustiness, who took the missive and carried it to al-Medina, where they went in to Marwan, and saluting him delivered to him the writ, and told him the case and how it stood. He read the letter, and fell a-weeping, but he went into Suad, as 'twas not in his power to refuse obedience to the Caliph, and acquainting her with the case, divorced her in the presence of al-Kumat and Nasir, after which he equipped her, and delivered her to them, together with a letter to the Caliph, wherein he versified as follows. Hurry not, Prince of faithful men, with best of grace thy vow, I will accomplish as 'twas vowed with the gladdest gree. I sinned not adulterous sin when loved her, I then how canst charge me with advouterous deeds or any villainy? Soon comes to thee that splendid sun, with what hath no living peer on earth, nor aught in mortal men or jinns her like shalt see. Then he sealed with his own signet, and gave to the messengers, who returned with Suat to Damascus, and delivered to Muawai the letter. And when he read it, it cried, Verily, he hath obeyed handsomely, but he exceedeth in his praise of the woman. Then he called for her, and saw beauty such as he had never seen, for comeliness and loveliness and stature and symmetrical grace. Moreover, he talked with her, and found her fluent of speech and choice of words. Quoth he, Bring me the Arab. So they fetched the man, who came sore disordered for shifts and changes of fortune. And Muawai said to him, O Arab, and thou wilt freely give her up to me? I will bestow upon thee in her stead 3 slave girls, high-bosomed maids like moons, with each 1,000 dinars. And I will assign thee on the treasury such an annual sum as shall content thee and enrich thee. When the Arab heard this, he groaned one groan and swooned away, so that Muawai thought he was dead. And as soon as he was revived, the Caliph said to him, What aileth thee? The Arab answered, With heavy heart and sore need have I appealed to thee from the injustice of Marwan bin al-Hakam, but to whom shall I appeal from thine injustice? And he versified in these couplets, Make me not, Allah save the Caliph, one of the betrayed, who from the fiery sands to fire must sue for help and aid. Deign thy restored Suad to this afflicted heart distraught, which every morn and eve by sore sorrow is waylaid. Loose thou my bonds, and grudge me not, and give her back to me. And if thou do not, ne'er thou shalt for luck of thanks prayed. Then said he, By Allah, O Commander of the Faithful, wert thou to give me all the riches contained in the Caliphate, yet would I not take them without Suad. And he recited this couplet. I love Suad, and unto all but hers my love is dead. Each morn I feel her love to me is drink and daily bread. Quoth Caliph, Thou confessest to having divorced her, and Marwan owned the like. So now we will give her free choice. And she choose other than thee, we will marry her to him, and if they choose thee, we will restore her to thee. Replied the Arab, Do so. And Murawai said to her, What sayest thou, O Suad? Which dost thou choose, the Commander of the Faithful, with his honor and glory and dominion and palaces and treasures and all else thou seest at his command, or Marwan bin al-Hakam with his violence and tyranny, or this Arab with his hunger and poverty? So she improvised these couplets. This one, whom hunger plagues and rags enfold, dearer than tribe and kith and kin I hold, than crowned head or deputy Marwan, or all who boast of silver, coins, and gold. Then said she, O Allah, O Commander of the Faithful, I will not forsake him for the shifts of fortune or the perfidies of fate. There being between us old companionship, we may not forget, and love beyond stay and let. And indeed, 'tis but just that I bear with him in his adversity, even as I shared with him in his prosperity. And the Caliph marveled at her wit and love and constancy, and ordering her 10,000 dirhams, delivered her to the Arab, who took his wife and went away. And they likewise tell a tale of the lovers of Bassorah. The Caliph, Harun al-Rashid, was sleepless one night. So he sent for al-Asmai and Husan al-Khalifi, and said to them, Tell me a story, you twain, and do thou begin, O Hussein. He said, 'Tis well, O Commander of the Faithful, and thus began. Some years ago I dropped downstream to Basra to present to Mohammed bin Suleiman al-Rabi a qasida, or elegy, I had composed on his praise, and he accepted it and bade me abide with him. One day I went out to Al-Murbad by way of Al-Mulaya, and being oppressed by the excessive heat, went up to a great door to ask for drink, when I was suddenly aware of a damsel, as she were a branch, swaying with eyes languishing, eyebrows arched and finely penciled, and smooth cheeks, rounded, clad in a shift of the color of pomegranate flower, and a mantilla of Sanya work. But the perfect whiteness of her body overcame the redness of her shift, through which glittered 2 breasts like twin granitos, and a waist, as it were a roll of fine Coptic linen, with creases like scrolls of pure white paper stuffed with musk. Moreover, O Prince of the True Believers, round her neck was slung an amulet of red gold that fell down between her breasts, and on the plane of her forehead were brow locks like a jet. Her eyebrows joined, and her eyes were like lakes, and she had an aquiline nose, and thereunder shell-like lips showing teeth like pearls. Pleasantness prevailed in every part of her, but she seemed dejected, disturbed, distracted, and in the vestibule came and went walking upon the heart of her lovers, whilst her legs made mute the voices of their ankle rings. And indeed she was, as saith the poet, Each portion of her charms we see seems of the whole a simile. I was overawed by her, O Commander of the Faithful, and drew near her to greet her, and behold, the house and vestibule and highways breathed fragrant with musk. So I saluted her, and she returned my salam with a voice dejected, and heart depressed, and the ardor of passion consumed. Then said I to her, O my lady, I am an old man and a stranger, and sore troubled by thirst. Wilt thou order me a draught of water, and win reward in heaven? She cried, Away, O Sheikh, from me! I am distracted from all thought of meat and drink. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 694th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the damsel said, O Sheikh, I am distracted from all thought of meat and drink. Quoth I, continue Hussein, By what ailment, O my lady? And quoth she, I love one who dealeth not justly by me, and I desire one who wants none of me. Wherefore I am afflicted with the wakefulness of those who wake stargazing. I asked, O my lady, is there on the wide expanse of earth one to whom thou hast a mind, and who to thee hath no mind? Answered she, Yes, and this for the perfection of beauty and loveliness and goodliness wherewith he is endowed. And why standest thou on this porch? Inquired I. This is his road, replied she, and the hour is passing by. I said, Oh, my lady, have you ever foregathered and had such commerce and converse as might cause this passion? At this she heaved a deep sigh. The tears ran down her cheeks as they were dew falling upon roses, and she versified these couplets. We were like the willow boughs in garden shining, and scented joys and happiest life combining, when as one bough from oneself would rend, and oh, thou seest this for that repining. Quoth I, O maid, and what betideth thee of thy love for this man? And quoth she, I see the sun upon the walls of his folk, and I think the sun is he. Or happily I caught sight of him unexpectedly, and am confounded, and the blood and the life fly from my body, and I abide in unreasoning plight a week, or in a se'night. Said I, Excuse me, for I have also suffered that which is upon thee of love-longing, and distraction of soul, and wasting of frame, and loss of strength, and I see in thee pallor of complexion, and emaciation, such as testify of the fever fits of desire. But how shouldst thou be unsmitten of passion, and thou a sojourner in the land of Bassorah? Said she, By Allah, before I fell in love of this youth, I was perfect in beauty and loveliness and amorous grace, which ravished all the princes of Bassorah, till he fell in love with me. I asked, O maid, and who parted you? And she answered, The vicissitudes of fortune. But the man of our separation was strange, and 'twas on this wise. One New Year's Day I had invited the damsels of Bassorah, and amongst them a girl belonging to Saran, who had bought her out of Oman for 4,000 dinars. Now she loved me, and loved me to madness, and when she entered she threw herself upon me, and well nigh tore me to pieces with bites and pinches. Then we withdrew apart to drink wine at our ease, till our meat was ready, and our delight was complete. And she toyed with me, and I with her, and now I was upon her, and she was upon me. Presently the fumes of the wine moved her to strike her hand on the ankle of my petticoat trousers, whereby it became loosed, unknown of either of us, and my trousers fell down in our play. At this moment he came in unobserved, and seeing me thus, was wroth at the sight, and made off as the Arab filly, hearing the tinkle of my bridle. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale till it be morrow.